Good day, Crime Talk aficionados. We have a lot of news for you today. First on the docket, actor Timothy Busfield surrenders in New Mexico on charges of child sexual abuse. Police link the firearm to the suspect in the Columbus double homicide. The au pair testifies at the murder trial. Alan Jackson, a little further reflection on his brief representation of Nick Reiner. Oops. Shot the wrong guy. We've got this day in legal history, our quote of the day, and our dumb criminal. Let's talk about it.
All right, lawyer.
Good day, everyone. My name is Scott Reich, and this is Crime Talk. Thanks for joining us. You know the drill. Subscribe if you haven't. Like if you do. Leave me a comment below. Hit that little bell for notifications. And yes, you can check us out on any of your favorite podcasting apps. Now, before we get started, let me remind you to go to crimetalksearch.com. Sign up for that background subscription service today. When you do, you'll be able to do as many background searches on anyone here in the United States that your little heart desires. The beautiful thing is you can do one search or you can do 1,000 searches a day. It simply depends on what you want to use it for. So let's say, for example, you're really into true crime and you want to research all of the people on the witness list that are in a case. You can do it with crimetalksearch.com. You're going to get a report emailed for every search that you do. And guess what? It's going to give you all types of information, email addresses, phone numbers, social media presence. You're going to find out if people are married, divorced, if they have liens, judgments against them. Are they on a sex offender registry? Do they have a criminal history? Everything you want to know, ladies and gentlemen. Go to crimetalksearch.com. You're going to be happy you did. All right. Let me also remind you, merch. If you'd like to get into the Crime Talk merchandise, please go to the link below and order today. All right. So before we dive into today's docket, need to know what's coming. Tomorrow, we're sitting down with the man who actually led the raid on the Zion Society, Mike King of Profiling Evil. He's taking us behind the yellow tape. And if you want the raw evidence and files that we can't show you here, you need to be in the Crime Talk vault. Now, let's get to today's news. Let's go ahead and open the record for Wednesday, January 14th, 2026. First on the docket, actor Timothy Busfield surrenders on charges of child sexual abuse. Now, he maintains his innocence, and he's entitled to the presumption of innocence. But actor and director Timothy Busfield, who is 68, turned himself into police in Albuquerque, New Mexico on January 13th following the issuance of an arrest warrant related to allegations of child sexual abuse. Now, Busfield faces 2 counts of criminal sexual contact with a minor and 1 count of child abuse stemming from incidents reportedly involving 2 young twin boys during the production of the Fox series The Cleaning Lady back in 2022. According to the arrest warrant and criminal complaint, the alleged victims were 7 and 8 years old at the time of the reported incidents, which spanned from November 22 through spring of 2024. The boys, who were child actors on the show, claimed Busfield inappropriately touched them over their clothes during breaks in filming. Their mother filed a police report back in October of 2025, prompting an investigation by the Albuquerque Police Department. The case initially came to light in November of 2024 when a doctor at the University of New Mexico hospital reported suspicion of sexual abuse, though it did not initially meet criteria for further action. Now, Busfield, who served as director and executive producer on the series from its 2nd season onward, denied any wrongdoing in a video statement obtained shortly before his surrender. He said, quote, "I did not do anything to those little boys," end quote. He asserted that he is going to confront these lies. They are horrible, and he is going to fight them with a great team. He knows that he will be exonerated, and he said once again that they're all lies. Well, Busfield's civil attorney, a guy by the name of Larry Stein, described the accusations as false and deeply troubling, suggesting a motive of revenge. The criminal complaint references statements indicating the boy's mother expressed intent to seek retribution after a younger actor replaced her sons in the show's final season. Now, Stein highlighted an independent investigation commissioned by Warner Brothers Television, conducted by attorneys Christina McGovern, which interviewed approximately a dozen witnesses and found no evidence supporting the claims of inappropriate conduct or Busfield being alone with the children. Now, Warner Brothers issued a statement emphasizing its priority for the safety and cast and the crew, particularly minors, and confirmed that they are cooperating in every way with law enforcement. The company has noted that it has processes for promptly investigating misconduct allegations. And in a police interview, Busfield acknowledged occasional playful physical action with the boys, such as tickling or lifting them, but insisted these occurred in the presence of others and were not inappropriate in any way. Now, obviously, this can have a significant impact on anyone's career, lifestyle, livelihood. So anyway, following the issuance of the warrant, the United States Marshal Service assisted in locating Mr. Busfield. And then, like I said, he was booked into the detention center without a bond. A mugshot was later released with a neutral expression. And the allegations have obviously led to professional repercussions already, including NBC's decision to shelve an upcoming episode of Law and Order, SVU, featuring Busfield. And he is obviously known for his roles in The West Wing, 30-something, Revenge of the Nerds, and Field of Dreams. He's also married to actress Melissa Gilbert, known for her role in Little House on the Prairie. She also owns Gilbert's lifestyle brand House on the Prairie. Anyway, she released a statement just the other day condemning abuse in all forms and clarifying that the allegations do not involve the brand or its operation. The company expressed a commitment to safety and respect while also respecting the family's privacy. Now, Gilbert, through a representative, stated she supported her husband, but will refrain from public comments during the legal process. Now, the investigation continues, and police noting that the boys may have been groomed. Busfield's team anticipates a vigorous defense, aiming, obviously, for a complete exoneration. A lot of stuff going on in the entertainment industry with relates to this stuff. And I don't care what's going on. I don't care if you're the director. Why are you tickling a bunch of little boys? All right. Now, he did turn himself in. It was a no bond hold, and it could be a day. Nothing's taking place today as far as the last time I checked. So it'll probably be in court by tomorrow. But I have seen a report that there was an allegation that there's another alleged victim, a female that was apparently touched inappropriately. Her dad has come forward and stated this, and it's going to be argued as an issue before the court when they set bond. Obviously, one of the conditions is going to be you're not going to be around anyone under the age of 18. So obviously, he's entitled to the presumption of innocence. We will give him that. Obviously, the defense already has something to work with here, and that is there's this allegation of some sort of retaliation or retribution for Busfield replacing these twins with younger actors the following year. Certainly, that's what the defense is going to look for when there's, what is the reason for these kids to make up these allegations? And if you got one, that certainly helps. It's a little more difficult when you're thinking, no, I was the great guy. Kids love me. Really? Then why would they make these allegations against you if you're such a great guy, right? Something to think about, ladies and gentlemen. Like, only handled, a couple hundred of these type of cases. Next on the docket. Investigators have recovered multiple firearms from the property of Michael David McKee, including one preliminarily connected through ballistic analysis to the December 30th, 2025 fatal shooting of Spencer Tepe, a local dentist, with his wife Monique Tepe there in Columbus, according to the police chief Elaine Bryant. Now, she announced this during a press conference today, describing the incident as targeted domestic violence-related attack. That's right. The couple was discovered deceased in their Wineland Park neighborhood residence following a welfare check prompted by Spencer's failure to report to work. The two young children, ages 1 and 4, were found unharmed in the home along with a family dog, and no evidence of forced entry into the residence or any sort of evidence of the robbery took place at the scene. Now, McKee, Monique Tepe's ex-husband, was arrested on January 10th in Rockford, Illinois. He faces 2 counts of premeditated aggravated murder there in Franklin County, Ohio. And during a court appearance in Winnebago County, Illinois on January 12th, McKee waived extradition and indicated through counsel an intent to enter a not guilty plea upon transfer to Ohio. Now, the extradition proceedings have encountered some logistical delays, with a status conference now tentatively set for January 23rd. Now, Chief Bryant stated that the surveillance footage from the neighborhood captured a vehicle associated with McKee arriving near the residence shortly before the estimated time of the homicide, between 2 a.m. and 5 a.m., and departing shortly thereafterwards. Now, the National Integrated Ballistic Information Network, known as NIBIN, provided a preliminary match linking one recovered firearm to the crime scene. Police believe that McKee acted alone, with no additional suspects being identified. Now, you got to wonder, there was a substantial interval, over 8 years between the divorce and the alleged crime, draws a little attention to potential underlying factors. Family members of the Tepe couple previously indicated they suspected McKee's involvement early in the investigation, but refrained from public speculation to avoid compromising the investigation. One relative described the arrest as a relief, though no recent direct conflicts between McKee and the victim were apparently reported or known. And court records from the couple's brief marriage cite incompatibility as the basis for divorce, with no documented allegations of domestic violence or any kind of significant dispute. Now, Monique Tepe filed the petition, and the proceedings concluded without shared or apparent ongoing issues. There was no children. There was divided up and move along. Now, there has been a separate civil litigation matter involving McKee that emerged in Nevada prior to the homicides. Federal and state court filings in Clark County and in the U.S. District Court for the District of Nevada named him as a defendant in medical negligence and a civil rights claim arising from his work as a vascular surgeon. These cases, which remain unresolved and are slated for future proceedings, allege failures in supervision and care leading to patient injuries. Now, attorneys involved noted difficulties locating McKee for service, describing instances of unverifiable addresses and his apparent relocation. Now, some have suggested that these matters may provide some context regarding personal stressors, but are unlikely to directly influence the criminal prosecution beyond illustrating just other circumstances going on in his life. Anyway, McKee did hold a medical license in Illinois and California, with a prior Nevada license expiring in 2025. Now, he was residing in a Chicago apartment building at the time of his arrest. Neighbors described him as unremarkable in daily interactions, expressing surprise at the allegations, and police activity at the residence included evidence collection following the arrest. Now, the Tepe family has obviously expressed gratitude to law enforcement and their efforts to emphasize the focus on supporting the surviving children while honoring the victims. Spencer Tepe was remembered as an energetic professional and devoted father. Monique as a nurturing mother, known for her warmth and community involvement. Now, McKee is presumed innocent, obviously, until proven guilty in the court of law. And if convicted of aggravated murder with premeditation, he faces potential penalties, including the imprisonment for life without the possibility of parole. Next, the au pair trial continues, and guess what? The au pair testified. The trial of Brendan Banfield, a former IRS special agent, commenced in Fairfield County, Virginia on January 13th, with testimony from the family's former Brazilian au pair. Now, Banfield faces charges of aggravated murder for the February 2023 death of his wife, Christine Banfield, and Joseph Ryan at their home there in Virginia. A pretty affluent suburb near Washington, D.C., and if convicted, he could face a life sentence. Now, prosecutors allege that Banfield orchestrated an elaborate scheme to eliminate his wife while concealing his extramarital affair with the au pair. And according to the prosecution's opening statement, Banfield impersonated Christine on a fetish-oriented website to lure Ryan to the residence under the pretense of a consensual encounter involving some aggressive role play. Now, the intent, they contend, was to stage a scene at the house for a home invasion gone awry, with Ryan framed as the perpetrator of Christine's murder. Anyway, the au pair, who pled guilty to manslaughter in October of 2024 for her involvement, specifically the fatal shooting of Ryan, testified in exchange for a recommended sentence of time served. She described the affair beginning back in August of 2022, shortly after she joined the household in 2021 to care for the couple's young children. By October of 2022, during a family trip to New York, Banfield reportedly confided that divorce was simply not a viable option due to financial concerns and custody issues involving their 4-year-old daughter. Instead, he expressed intent to, quote, get rid of her, end quote, referring to Christine, and discussed future plans to marry the au pair and have children together. How romantic. Couple things to be learned here, ladies and gentlemen. Would you testify to anything to get out on credit time served? Good cross-examination, right? Other thing is also, hey, I got an idea. If you're going to get an au pair, probably a good idea not to sleep with them and start an affair, particularly with your wife still around, right? Unbelievable. Anyway, testimony has revealed that Banfield used Christine's email and photograph to establish a profile on this website called Fet Life, where communications portrayed her as describing a specific non-consensual fantasy scenario. Anyway, the au pair stated that both she and Banfield contributed to the site's messages, selecting Ryan as the individual deemed suitable to fulfill the planned role. To establish plausible alibis, Banfield reportedly altered his routine in the weeks leading up to the incident, including visits to locations such as a nearby McDonald's on the morning of the killing. Then on the day of the incident, the au pair testified that Banfield positioned himself at a McDonald's while she remained at home. After Ryan arrived and entered the bedroom, events escalated rapidly. She recounted that Christine had alerted Banfield that the intruder wielded a knife. Banfield then discharged his service weapon at Ryan, followed by fatally stabbing Christine in the neck, while Perez held a firearm he had purchased earlier. Now, she described blood affecting her hands, shoes, and socks during the sequence of events. Now, following the acts, the scene was allegedly staged to suggest a defensive response to the intruder, and the au pair placed the couple's child in the basement with an electronic device for distraction before the confrontation began. She subsequently contacted the police, initially reporting an intruder. Now, Banfield has pled not guilty, and his defense maintains that the au pair's initial account aligned with self-defense and that her arrest prompted her to cooperate with police. During the cross-examination, the defense challenged her recollection of the details, including aspects of the website account creation and specific messages. The au pair attributed memory gaps to the psychological trauma and the protective mechanisms of the mind under extreme stress. She also addressed jailhouse correspondence, expressing affection towards Banfield and frustrations with her legal representation, explaining these are influenced by emotional distress, dependency on Banfield's family for support, and awareness that communications were being monitored. The trial continues. We're bringing it to you live with additional evidence, including blood analysis and digital forensics, expected to play, obviously, a significant role in the proceedings. Now, next on the docket, we brought you a story yesterday about Alan Jackson, about his reflection on his brief representation of Nick Reiner. So in a recent podcast appearance, attorney Alan Jackson detailed his swift decision to take on the defense of Nick Reiner, accused in the high-profile stabbing deaths of his parents, filmmaker Rob Reiner and Michelle Singer Reiner. Now, Jackson, who briefly represented Reiner before withdrawing, described dropping all other commitments to focus on the case shortly after the incident. The bodies of the Reiners were discovered in their Los Angeles residence on December 14th of 2025. And Nick Reiner now faces murder charges related to the killing and is now represented by a public defender named Kimberly Green, following Jackson's quick departure as well. Now, during the episode of the Hot Mics with Billy Bush podcast, which aired on January 12th, Jackson recounted receiving a call in the early hours of December 15th while in New York on another matter. It was just hours into the circumstance, he stated, noting he had only recently become aware of this tragedy. Despite being deeply engaged in his ongoing work, Jackson immediately mobilized his team and returned to Los Angeles. Then Jackson appeared alongside Nick Reiner at an initial court hearing on January 7th, but stepped aside prior to the arraignment. Now, this is where it gets interesting. He has consistently declined to specify the reason for the withdrawal, citing the need to uphold client confidentiality. Now, when pressed on potential financial issues, Jackson firmly rejected such speculation, insisting, "You can't say that something happened with the retainer because I've never said that." He emphasized that any assumption about that matter would be inappropriate. Reaffirming his stance from a prior press conference, Jackson maintained that Nick Reiner is not guilty, and obviously under California law and the United States Constitution, he is given that right. And Jackson expressed strong confidence in Green and the public defender's office, describing them as outstanding legal professionals. Now, Jackson also highlighted the extensive efforts his firm invested during the roughly 3-week period of representation, stating that his team worked tirelessly to address misinformation and speculation around the case. It was important for him, Alan Jackson, to right some wrongs that had been printed, he explained. And in a subsequent interview on Kelly Ripa's Let's Talk Off Camera podcast on January 13th, Jackson reiterated his team's ongoing commitment to Reiner's best interest, underscoring the importance of a robust defense. When asked about handling seemingly challenging cases, Jackson framed his approach as a defense of constitutional principles rather than solely the individual. We're defending the Constitution. I wonder who said that before. Maybe this guy. We're defending an idea. We're defending the foundation on which this country was built in terms of a justice system. Now, Jackson elaborated on the U.S. justice system safeguards, noting that it protects individuals' liberties unless circumstances warrant its removal through a fair process. He added that the system accounts for factors like mental health in general terms, such as when a defendant lacks the capacity to form intent or comprehend their actions, potentially leading to defenses like not guilty by reason of insanity. And he clarified that these remarks were not specific to Reiner's case. Obviously, this case is going to be of great interest as things go, as Nick Reiner is currently being held in solitary confinement and undergoes regular medical evaluations while he's been incarcerated. Family members, including the siblings, Romy and Jake Reiner, have reportedly connected with individuals close to their parents following the deaths. And the development underscores the complexity, obviously, of high-profile cases, in their legal proceedings. And the attorneys are trying to navigate some ethical obligations as well as the public scrutiny. Now, I don't have any proof of this, all right? So take it for what it's worth. I think Alan Jackson was in New York. His staff said, "Oh my gosh, this is going to be the biggest case of the century. We got to get on it." I don't think the family, everything that we know about the Reiner family thus far, nothing indicates. They said the first thing we have to do before their parents were even released from the morgue is we need to get Alan Jackson on this case. None. Zero. Zilch. Nothing. I think Alan Jackson said, "Hey, this guy's an adult. He needs an attorney. I'm going to go in there and volunteer my services." And of course, we'll work out the details later. And then when the details came to be worked out, didn't quite work out, he got off the case. Now, fortunately, he did it, before it got too into the case. But this is a very similar issue, not to digress too much. An attorney tried to interject himself into the Maduro case, the former Venezuelan dictator who's in New York City that just happened to be involved in all sorts of things during the Iran-Contra affair and weapons negotiations. Tried to interject himself into the case. The appointed attorney said, "Who are you? Get off this case." And the judge kicked the guy off the case because he hadn't been retained. The client hadn't agreed to it. So attorneys do sometimes try to interject themselves in the case to make headlines, maybe make a quick buck, maybe get the case of the lifetime that they're looking for. But usually you wait until somebody contacts you, either the defendant personally calls you or a family member and it says that. Unless I hear some or see some evidence otherwise, there's no way I'm going to believe that the family said, "Oh my gosh, we need to get Nick Reiner an attorney." No way in heck. And if anybody's got any information to prove me wrong, please send it to me. I'll be more than happy to look at it, and I will admit that I am wrong. Next on the docket, oops, shot the wrong guy. If you can believe it, a Minnesota man has been charged with second-degree murder and related offenses following allegations that he mistakenly shot an unintended individual before fatally shooting his intended target the following day. Please meet Brandon Russell King, not our dumb criminal of the day, but he is from Duluth, and he was arrested on January 8th in connection with the death of 35-year-old Chaz Tony. Now, police discovered Tony deceased from a gunshot wound to the head shortly after midnight on October 10th of 2025 in the Central Hillside neighborhood. Now, according to court records and statements from the St. Louis County Attorney's Office, King had been actively seeking Tony, known by the nickname of Cash, in the days prior leading up to the incident. Then on October 9th, King allegedly discharged a firearm at another individual in the vicinity, striking the person in the chest. That guy survived. Anyway, witnesses reported that King subsequently acknowledged the error, stating that he had shot the wrong guy and that he was supposed to find Cash. Anyway, some forensic examination reportedly confirmed that the same weapon was used in both shootings. The following evening, on October 10th, witnesses described hearing gunshots and observed King near Tony's body immediately afterwards. And surveillance footage allegedly placed King in the area at the time of the fatal incident. Prosecutors have described Tony's death as an execution-style killing, noting that he was shot in the head while still holding a cigarette in his mouth with his keys and phone in his hand. I think that would be execution style. Anyway, King now faces charges of intentional second-degree murder in Tony's death and second-degree assault with a dangerous weapon for the prior non-fatal shooting. He is currently detained in the St. Louis County Jail without bond, pending further proceedings. No motive has publicly been disclosed, and it's not available in the court filings, but if we find one, we'll let you know. Anyway, the police had conducted this month-long investigation into Tony's homicide, which was one of several violent incidents in the city back in 2025, and police expressed condolences to the Tony family and continue to encourage any additional information to be brought forth by anybody that may have it. Next, this day in legal history, January 14th, 1639. Going old school, ladies and gentlemen. The first written governmental constitution in modern history was adopted in the colony of Connecticut. Now, the fundamental orders represented the first time that a government was based upon a written constitution anywhere in the world. Now, along with the Mayflower Compact, the fundamental orders served as the basis for the United States Constitution some 150 years later, which in turn influenced the development of the various constitutions throughout the world. 326 years after Connecticut adopted the original fundamental orders, the modern Constitution of Connecticut was ratified. On this date, in 1784, the ratification of the Treaty of Paris. That's right, the Continental Congress ratified the Treaty of Paris, officially ending the American Revolutionary War with Great Britain. The legal agreement recognizes U.S. independence, defined borders, and addressed issues like debts and property rights, marking a foundational moment in U.S. sovereignty. Now, on this date in 1878, Hall v. Decuir, D-E-C-U-I-R, the United States Supreme Court held that a Louisiana law prohibiting racial segregation on interstate steamships violated the Commerce Clause of the Constitution. Now, this decision limited state authority over interstate commerce and inadvertently supported segregation practices until it was later overturned. Some people. On this date in 1963, the inauguration of George Wallace, not another guy who's not a great guy. Anyway, George Wallace was inaugurated as governor of Alabama, delivering his infamous Segregation Forever speech. This event precipitated major civil rights confrontations, including federal interventions and Supreme Court cases enforcing desegregation, such as in the University of Alabama standoff. And on this date, in 1979, President Jimmy Carter proposed making Martin Luther King's birthday a federal holiday. Now, this initiative laid the groundwork for the 1983 legislation establishing the holiday, advancing civil rights recognition through federal law, and honoring King's contribution to equality under the Constitution. You remember the I Have a Dream speech, that one day his children would be based upon the content of their character and not the color of their skin. That's the way it should be, ladies and gentlemen. Next, our quote of the day has to do with equal protection under the law. And let's go old school once again versus the Plessy v. Ferguson case, 1896, where Justice John Marshall Harlan dissented forcefully against the majority's upholding of racial segregation under the separate but equal doctrine. In his dissent, Justice Harlan declared, quote, "Our Constitution is colorblind and neither knows nor tolerates classes among citizens. In respect of civil rights, all citizens are equal before the law," end quote. Now, this passage has endured as a foundational articulation of the principles of the Equal Protection Clause of the 14th Amendment that demands impartial treatment without regard to race or class distinction. Now, for a little broader context, the Equal Protection Clause itself, found in Section 1 of the 14th Amendment, states, quote, "No state shall deny to any person within its jurisdiction the equal protection of the laws," end quote. Now, this provision has served as the constitutional basis for landmark decisions rejecting discrimination, including Brown v. Board of Education, 1954 Supreme Court case, where the court held that separate educational facilities are inherently unequal, thereby overruling Plessy v. Ferguson and affirming that racial segregation in public schools violates equal protection. See, ladies and gentlemen, it's a good thing when the Supreme Court changes its mind because they're not always correct. And finally, our dumb criminal. Well, let's say today, two dumb criminals, plural. Two individuals associated with the OnlyFans platform, Sanaya Blanchard, who's 34, and Jordan Lantry, age 31, were removed from an American Airlines flight and subsequently arrested in Miami International Airport on January 9th of this year. According to the police reports and local news accounts, police responded to complaints regarding two passengers who appeared intoxicated and refused to comply with the crew's instructions. The women had reportedly occupied first-class seats that did not correspond to their assigned boarding passes. Despite repeated requests from airline personnel to relocate to their correct seats, they declined, prompting the involvement of law enforcement. Now, video footage captured aboard the aircraft and shared on social media show officers boarding the plane, and in one exchange, an airline representative inquired about the passenger boarding passes, to which one of the women responded by acknowledging their intoxication and suggesting that crew members preferred not to address the situation further. The pair was then escorted off the aircraft in handcuffs. Now, during the removal process, one of the women performed a split maneuver while being guided through the airport, an action documented in the video. And Blanchard was observed wearing a red tracksuit featuring the word "psycho" printed on the clothing. Well, the Miami-Dade County Sheriff's Office charged both individuals with misdemeanor trespass on property after warning. They were transported to a local correctional facility and processed, and they were released after posting a $500 bond. Records indicate they received formal warning to avoid the premises. Don't go back to American Airlines. Anyway, in the aftermath, the women have capitalized on the incident through social media. They have promoted and begun selling merchandise, such as apparel and accessories incorporating their mugshots. One of the individuals posted a statement claiming that American Airlines had forgiven them due to their appearance and flexibility, referencing the splits performed during the incident. Apparently, this event occurred amid the pair's visit to Miami, reportedly to celebrate a birthday, and has drawn attention to issues of passengers' compliance with airline policies. What can you say, ladies and gentlemen? American Airlines has not issued a detailed public statement regarding this, but yes, ladies, you are our dumb criminals of the day. Can't people just behave on an airplane? Can't people not get drunk prior to getting on an airplane? Seriously, people? it just creates problems for everyone. All right, that's all we have for today. Thanks for joining us, everybody. We appreciate you taking the time to watch us. We'll see you tomorrow. And remember, the Constitution matters.